to introduce at this point in time, I'm going to introduce our speaker. Our first speaker will be Lois Strachan. Please get ready to be inspired by this dynamic lady. She is a motivational speaker. She's been doing it for 25 years. Yeah, you have lived, Lois. We thank God for that. She's been captivating audiences not only in South Africa, but all around the globe. She is from corporate executives to NGO leaders and just all around. She is a powerful storyteller. You know, she uses transformative insights to touch people's lives. Her personal journey of becoming blind serves as a profound testament to human resilience and potential. Lois Strachan lost her sight at the age of 21 due to diabetic retinopathy. And despite all of these life challenges, this lady has not allowed that to take over her life. You know, she has allowed this event to actually, to go on and allow her to achieve remarkable success, and serves as a testament to resilience and determination. She is an accomplished author. She has written several books. Her works not only focus on life-changing experiences in general, but also focuses on disabilities and disabled people, allowing all of us to come together. You know, she's published multiple books, including The Different Way of Seeing, which chronicles her journey and strategies, and that she has developed to navigate life without sight. She's a traveler. She is such a remarkable woman. She's also a musician. I'm sure she'll share a little bit of her journey that she's done. I mean, I know I'm saying a lot, but sometimes we need to give you know cognizant where it's due. She also has a podcast that she runs. She's a busy lady. She's a busy lady. So much that I've learned from working with Louise over the years. I am so looking forward to hearing from her. Ladies and gentlemen, raise your coffee and let's sit back and can we please give a round of applause for Lois?
Thank you so much, Princess. I think after all that, there's not really very much that I need to add. No. So thank you to you, Princess, and thank you to everyone for coming along and joining us today. It's really great to see all you folks on the call. Welcome, and I hope that you are happy and well wherever you are. I want to start off by asking a question. And in this one, if you type your answers in the chat box, or if you're unwilling or uncomfortable or unable to use the chat box, just raise your hand either on the video or electronically, and I'll ask Princess if she can both monitor the chat box for me and also just to let me know if people are wanting to speak. And then we'll ask you to unmute yourself. So the question that I have is this: what talents do you have? Now, those could be the strengths you have, the abilities, the things you're good at. They may be creativity, they may be related to creativity, to business, to interpersonality, to intercommunication. There can be all sorts of different talents and abilities that each one of us has. And Princess, you said it right up front. We all have abilities. And I'd really like to just get people to share a few of those with us this afternoon, just to start off with. And I promise I will explain why I'm starting this way. Christopher, a born diplomat. Yes, you are indeed that.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Is there anyone who would like to go on, so rather speak on the microphone and...
I think we can unmute. You're most welcome to unmute and share if you don't want to type. I think that's always the easiest.
I'm happy to jump in if you want, Lois.
Sure, Hilary.
I'm going to make a confession. I'm actually sitting working on my talent right now. You know what that is?
I know.
I do a lot of sewing and make quilts. I alter my friends' clothes, and sewing is a huge part of who I am, among other things. But that's where I am. Yeah.
Thank you, Hilary. Okay.
Okay, Lizanne has responded. She says, I'm quite creative. I crochet and I paint a bit. That's nice.
Oh, lovely.
It's interesting because I've been doing a lot of dot capture for something, and on the sheet, people are asked what their hobbies are. And I've done about 150 sheets and about 2,000 to do. And I can tell you, the world is a very boring place. Other people are too shy to admit they have hobbies. Maybe we put talents, it might be a better thing, but it's shocking how people don't have habits. And I think hobbies are actually, I think, developing your talent. So, yeah.
And Hilary is actually very beautifully feeding into one of the things that I want to share today. Would anyone else like to share their talents? Oh,
Okay, so there's a response from Gerda Lewis. She says, I like to teach people and help them to reach their potential. I will be in and out of the meeting this afternoon, but will be listening in as much as possible. Okay, that's fine. Not a problem, Gerda. Thanks for letting us know. She's a teacher and helps others to reach their potential.
great. And I think I heard that you had also added a few things into the chat there, Princess. Do you want to just read your responses too?
Yes, I play squash, table tennis, and I play tennis. And yeah, I love AI and the new technology, and I loved touching people's lives, just like Gerda. Gerda, me and you should be on the same WhatsApp group. There is a hand that is up.
Okay.
Let's see who's got their hand up. Where am I seeing this? I'm seeing it.
Brittany does. I did see that.
Oh, yes, it's Brittany. It's Brittany, yeah.
Britt, do you want to unmute yourself?
So, my talent is I absolutely love listening to other people. I find great joy in just being there for others and, just listening. And you don't have to reply. Just the best thing sometimes to do is just to listen. And I feel that that's one of my talents.
Thank you. That's a lovely talent to have. Okay, I do need to move on because I am aware of time. But if you want to continue just jotting down some thoughts and ideas in the chat box, please feel free to do that. So I know I said that I would explain why I was asking you this particular question. And it really comes down to the fact that we all have many, many different talents. Some of them may be stronger than others. Some of them may be what we see as being more useful than others and valuable to us in our lives, in our business, in our communities. But sometimes I think we have talents, we have abilities, we have all sorts of different things that we do that we diminish, that we undervalue, or that we just ignore. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take you back with me to a time when I was about 10 years old. And I had a dream of playing music. But I never told anyone about that dream because I just thought that the adults in my life, my parents, my grandparents, my teachers and things like that would look at me, shake their heads disapprovingly and say, wouldn't you rather get a real job? And I know To an extent, that's what the role of a parent is, the role of a teacher. Maybe you can relate to that as someone who had that experience yourself. But here's what it did for me. Because I thought and I realized that what they said was true, that maybe it would be better to do something like they thought I should, like become a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor. I thought that music was unrealistic, that it wasn't valuable. I thought it was irrational and impractical. So I took that dream and I tucked it away in a corner of my heart and shut the door. And then I went on and carried on living the life that I thought would be far more practical, far more reasonable, and far more simple. Then, when I was in my third year of my bachelor's degree at university, I became blind, as Princess indicated. It's as a result of diabetes. I was diagnosed with my type 1 diabetes when I was 6 years old, and I developed a condition called diabetic retinopathy, which is a condition that affects about 55% of people who have been living with either type 1 or type 2 diabetes for more than 15 years. Now, in my case, what that meant was that I had to have a year of laser treatment, which didn't help. I then had to have 6 surgical operations, 3 on each eye. And that also didn't help. And at the end of it, the doctors told me that there was nothing more that they could do to save my sight and that I was going to be blind for the rest of my life. Now, when I became blind, I realized that I had a choice. I could go home and give up and be angry and bitter, depressed and dependent for the rest of my life. Or I could go out into the world and see what was still possible for me as a blind person living in a sighted world. And I chose to move forwards. Now, here's the thing. They don't ever give you a class when you're at school or at university on how to do things as a blind person. And honestly, if they had, I still probably wouldn't have taken that class because I didn't think it would be relevant to me. For 21 years, I had been dependent on my sight, like many people are. I didn't understand how the different techniques that I would need to use my other senses to fill in for the gaps left by my blindness. So I didn't know how to do things like navigating from one place to another, reading, writing, cooking, cleaning, shopping, applying makeup, buying clothing, selecting clothing, finding one item when it's out, determining one item from another. I had no idea how to do any of that. And if you want to think about it, and I do realize that on this group, we are a very diverse group. We all have different strengths, different abilities. We do things in different ways. But I want you to think for a moment about how you pour a cup of coffee. And then think about how you might do that without eyesight. And I know at least one person on this call who can probably understand exactly what I'm going to say next. Because how are you going to know where that cup is? How are you going to know that when you're pouring the water into your cup, bearing in mind you're pouring boiling water, that you're pouring it into the cup and not all over the counter, all over your hands? And yes, of course, there are techniques to do that. as there are techniques to do almost everything else in life. But I had to learn all of those techniques. And that was overwhelming. At times it was difficult. There were days that I did not even want to climb out of bed, because not only did I have to learn all these new techniques, but I was sitting with the questions spinning round and round in my brain. Why? Why had this happened? What could I have done differently to change the outcome? If I'd decided not to have those eye operations, would I still be able to see? What was I going to do now? What was possible? What was going to happen to me for the rest of my life? Even though I had made that decision to move forwards, I did not have the practical tools to do so. And this is when my music came back to me. At the time, before all this happened, I had been working part-time in a shop. And a number of the friends who were working with me decided to form a band, and they invited me to join with them. And I leapt at the chance after I became blind. And a week after I became blind, I joined a rock band. And I was so, so happy. Over the years, music has played a fundamental role in my life. It still does. I may not play as often as I used to, but I still love it. I mean, I've had some amazing opportunities through my music. I met my husband through music. I've played at events like the South African National Arts Festival in Grahamstown. I've played at Artscape Theatre in Cape Town. And I've played at more dim and dingy pubs than I can count. And I've loved every single one of them. But what I didn't realize when I joined that band was the way it was going to help me to adjust to my blindness. Because when I was playing music, either sitting in a rehearsal room with the other guys in the band, or especially playing live on stage, nothing else matters. All that was left was the music. I fell into the music and surrounded myself with something that I loved. And because I was doing that, because I was tapping in to one of my talents, one of my abilities, I was able to find the time and the space I needed to take a step back from everything else that was happening and regather my strength, my energy, my resilience, so that I could then go forward and carry on with everything else that I had to learn. What is your music? What is it there in your life that allows you the opportunity when you feel like you're drowning, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling that you're confronting a challenge that is simply too much for you to cope with? What do you turn to give you that space, that chance to catch your breath and regather your energies? And again, I'd love for you to share that in the chat box, or just to unmute yourself and share that with us.
You all are welcome to unmute. I don't know if I'm allowed to share first,
Go,
Lois.
Princess. I'd love
That's
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, it's church. You know, I find that when I get through that, if I lean back to God, you know, I get that, you know, that connection back. So for me, it's God and church.
That's lovely. Thank you, Princess.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to share what they have that they turn to when they feel that need to just step away and regather their energy? If you don't feel comfortable sharing, that's also totally fine. I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, or they can just unmute and share. That'll be
Yeah.
great.
Lois, you're going to get fed up with me, but you know what I'm going to say. So it's sewing, it's cooking, it's gardening, it's just being in the world on your own without music, without distractions. Yeah, and it's what feeds your soul.
And you're right that it does. It for each of us, it's something different. You know, it can be going and grabbing a cup of coffee. It can be spending time with friends. It can be, as in my case, listening to music, playing music, reading. There are so many different things, but I think we undervalue sometimes what it is that we turn to when we need that time out, because we think it's just something we do, but we undervalue and we underestimate the value that it can have in our lives. Brittany, I see you raised your hand.
Yes, go ahead.
So for me, when I need to feed my soul, I turn to church, I turn to Bible study, and I turn to praise and worship, as well as other types of music as well, because I'm absolutely in love with music. So I can agree with you there.
Great, that's wonderful. I'm so glad that you have that as a something that is so foundational in your life.
Lois, there's also a response from Lizanne. She says, I like doing some Bible study and scrapbooking, and then some verses, and I enjoy, and I enjoy that stands out for her.
That's wonderful, Lizanne. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Okay, if there's anyone else would like to, please feel free to continue adding into the chat. That would be great. But I think what I'm trying to say here through sharing that story with you is, as I've said, that having something and understanding how it can benefit you does make it easier to manage when you're facing those inevitable challenges and problems that you face in your life. You know, for me, music wasn't the only talent and ability that I had that fundamentally shifted my life after becoming blind. Since even younger than that dream of playing music, as far back as I can remember, I've always loved puzzles. As a young child, doing picture puzzles, you know, the kind of puzzles that you get the small pieces out on either cardboard or thin wood, and you piece them together to look like the picture that's on the box. I used to love doing those, from 10 piece puzzles right the way up to 1,000-piece puzzles. I loved doing those, always, as a sighted kid. And I wasn't bad at them. Some were harder than others, but I enjoyed every one. Then as I grew a little bit older, I discovered word games and word puzzles, particularly word searches. Now, I don't know if you all know what a word search is. It's a puzzle where you're given a grid of seemingly random letters. And then you're given a list of words. And the idea is to hunt through that grid of random letters to find the words. And they may be vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. And I used to love those. I would never leave the house without a word search puzzle book. I took them to school with me. I took them on holiday with me. And when I finished the book, I'd go straight down to the local shop and buy another. I absolutely loved them. Then, of course, when I became blind, that changed. And I couldn't see the picture puzzles. I couldn't see the word search puzzles. But what is a puzzle if not a problem that needs to be solved. And that's how I've kept that love of puzzles alive in my life, how it's remained a foundational part of my life. Because rather than doing word puzzles or picture puzzles, I am now doing life puzzles. Because every task that I had to learn to do became a little puzzle that I had to find the solutions. If I was going to walk from here to the shop, how was I going to do that? What were the points that I needed to know so that I could find my way from here to the shop? If I was going to cook, how was I going to do that? How would I identify the different ingredients? Not using sight, but using taste or scent or sound, and everything became a puzzle, a life puzzle. And that has become part of every single day of my life since, well, probably most of my life. It's just the type of puzzles that have changed. So I still do that every single day, whether it's, as I say, trying to figure out how to get from here to the shop, whether it's trying to figure out how to navigate a new, unknown, and possibly only slightly accessible website or app on my phone, because while I can access many of them using the software that I have, sometimes I just can't. And solving those problems, my life problems, my life puzzles, when I get it right, it is as satisfying as completing a picture puzzle or a word search puzzle. But when I was doing those puzzles, it was just something I did, a hobby, something that wasn't important. It wasn't something that I realized didn't play a role in my life. It was just something I did when I had a few spare minutes. I underestimated the value of what those puzzles were teaching me in terms of life. Is it possible that there are things that you're doing that if you look at them in a slightly different way or adjust them, that you could find that they can become more important to assist you in your world? And I'm not going to ask you to type this in the chat box unless you choose to, but yeah, I really think that it's the skills, the abilities, the talents we have that we undervalue, that often we don't see what an important role that they are playing in our life. So the question becomes then, if we have all these skills and talents within us already, why do we find it so hard to actually solve the life problems that are facing us? As an ability coach, I believe fundamentally that that my clients have within them, most of what they need to help them solve whatever problems they're facing, the goals that they're wanting to achieve, or any of the gaps that they're wanting to cover. I think that my role as a coach is often to walk alongside my clients and help them to think through things from one step away, to give them the space, to give them the opportunity to explore what they think, what they want, what they believe, what opportunities they have, the tools they have, the resources they already have, and then to find the way forward and whatever it is that they need to find that way forward. So then the question does remain, if it was so easy, why do people encounter challenges? Why do we encounter problems? And I think it is because often when we're facing something like that, as happened when I first became blind, all the questions I had, all the things I didn't know, the uncertainties, I just couldn't stop them from spinning round in my mind. And they just seemed so overwhelming, so huge, so big, so scary at the time that I couldn't see my way past them. I couldn't find my way past them. I didn't even know where to start. I got caught up, and all that there was that uncertainty, that unknowing. And that can be paralyzing. It can be debilitating. So what I'd like to do is to share a few simple techniques with you that I have found that have been useful to me over the years in helping me to move from that state of being caught in overwhelm and uncertainty, and then breaking that down to actionable steps that I have used to help me move forwards. The first technique is to assume, to believe that you can find a solution. I call this having a can-do attitude. And the way it works to me is that if we are caught in the anxiety, in the overwhelm, and we can't find a way out, we get so busy asking ourselves if something is possible, and then the self-doubt comes in. And we often just go, I can't do it. We freeze, we paralyze, we become paralyzed, and we then just are too scared and too immobile to actually even try. So assuming that you can do something, believing you can, that you will find a solution, shifts the questions you have to ask yourself. You're not asking yourself, is it possible? You're asking yourself, how do I do it? And when you're asking yourself how, you start asking yourself about the tools, the resources, the knowledge that you would need to solve that problem. And maybe you could find that you've already got some of those tools, some of those resources, and some of that knowledge. There may be some that you'll need to still get, but at least you have a way forward. And a kind of story that when I've used that as a tool in my life is when I started podcasting. I knew I wanted to start podcasting. I had no idea if it was possible. And then I realized that I already knew the several blind people who were doing podcasting. Therefore, it must be possible. Therefore, it must be possible for me as well. And if it was possible for me, I could figure it out. So what tools would I need? What equipment would I need? What did I need to learn? What did I need to do? How was I going to structure the podcast? How was I going to just go about doing it? And each one of those became something that I could answer in their own small way. And well, I started that podcast more than 5 years ago, and I'm in process of creating episode number 106. And if you're interested in learning more about the show, it's called A Different Way of Seeing, and it's available on any of the podcast players, including iTunes, Spotify, Audible, Apple Music. Anywhere that you can find podcasts, you will find it. Or you can probably find it, well, you can find it on my website, loisstrachan.com. So if you approach a problem by saying, yes, I will be able to find a solution, it changes the questions you ask yourself, and it makes it easier to work out what it is that you need to do to move forwards. So that's the first technique. The second technique is to break things down into bite-sized pieces. Don't worry about focusing on the whole solution. just figure out the next step. Because if you can figure out just one small step, and as you can see, these are related, but if you can figure out that first step, it might open up new possibilities of new opportunities, new ideas of what the next step might be. And each step forwards that you take will also add more encouragement, more enthusiasm, more motivation to you to continue moving forwards. And you will eventually work your way through that entire big, scary problem that you're facing. When I first lost my sight, well, when I first became blind, I don't consider that I've lost anything, just to say, I became blind. I went back to university 3 weeks after I became blind. Now, I had no idea how I was going to do that. I hadn't even started my blindness skills training yet. But I never doubted that I would be able to figure out how I was going to get through my university degree. So I had no idea of how I was going to get from one lecture room to another, how I was going to take notes in my lectures, how I was going to do my assignments, how I was going to do my essays, how I was going to do my readings, how I was going to write my exams. But all I had to do was to figure out one first step, how to get to my lectures. Now, I had friends in the classes with me, and some of them were doing the same degree as me. They were willing to help me, and they would help me get from one lecture room to the other. That's how I navigated before I learned my white cane skills. How was I going to take notes? I just recorded each lecture. Then I would go home, re-listen to the lecture on one tape player. Yes, it was the days when I had cassettes, and use those as a way of summarizing the important parts that I needed to, so that I could use my summaries on audio to study for my exams, to then do my essays and do the readings. I asked friends and my department's fellow students to help me. My exams, I know I am very fortunate in this because I had the most amazing department that I was working with. 2 of the 3 university departments I was studying with were so incredibly accommodating. So they said I could record my essay answers onto audio cassettes, and the department secretary would type them out, and that would be what was marked. And that was amazing. So step by step, just by figuring out one tiny part of the big overwhelming problem, I managed within 8 months to finish my university degree and to qualify, and then went on to do an honors degree after that. So if you can, no, I believe you can. You don't try to figure out the whole solution. Just try to figure out that first step that you need to take to move you forwards towards finding the solution. And then the next step, and then the next step. The third technique, and this is the last technique that I'm going to share with you, sounds so simple, as the other 2 are also. But it's this: don't be afraid to ask for help. Now, I'm part of a Facebook group. And in fact, Adriana, who runs that Facebook group, is with us on the call. And I saw a post on there today that was from someone saying, just raising the question about, is it possible for a blind person to live independently? And it caused quite a degree of conversation. Some people saying, yes, of course it is. Some people saying, well, no, it isn't, because we have to be practical and understand that we do need some help. And I think the reality is this: it doesn't matter whether you're blind, whether you're disabled, whether you are non-disabled, able-bodied, whatever term you want to use. There are times that we all have to ask for help. And yet, it is hard for us to do so. It's hard because asking for help makes us feel vulnerable. It makes us feel like we aren't strong enough, or we're not good enough, or we're not this enough, or that's enough. But everybody has to ask for help at some stage. And one of the comments on the group, which I did respond with and agree with, was, when you're sick, you go to a doctor. That's asking for help. If you've got problems with your plumbing, you approach a plumber. That's asking for help. In my case, if I'm needing help to go clothing shopping, I ask for help. Thank you, Hillary. And then for adjusting the clothing when I bought it. Actually, I do love the clothing we found, so you really did help me there. If I need help on a website, I will ask for help. I don't feel bad about asking for help, because I know that when I have friends or colleagues or people who in turn need help, when I can help them, I will do that. And I am lucky. And I think this is partially related to that. I'm fortunate because when I became blind, I was part of an incredibly strong social group. Often when people go through a life-changing experience like I did, people step away from their lives because it's difficult to adjust. It's difficult to know what to do, how to help. People can feel powerless. Two of my closest friends felt that they needed to step away from my life. But the majority of my friends, all of my family, stayed with me, stuck with me, and they continued to encourage me, support me, and to assist me whenever I wanted to do crazy things, like going to play mini golf. Actually, that was quite a funny memory because they would explain the hole to me. We would then put a loud ticking clock in the holes of the mini golf, each hole that we did, so I could hear where it was, and I would just play however long it took. So it was a lot of fun. Yes, we got a couple of stares, but mostly people were really encouraging. They thought it was great that we were trying it. So yes, having a supportive group of friends and family is important. And that also made it easier for me to feel comfortable to reach out and ask for help. I'm not saying it's always, see, we don't like to feel dependent. We don't like to feel vulnerable. We don't like to feel isolated. But, you know, if you do take that chance and just reach out and say, hey, can someone help me? I think you'll be surprised at how many people will happily, willingly reach out a helping hand. And then, of course, be willing to reach out a hand in return when people that you know need help. Okay, so we're pretty much at the end of what I wanted to share with you today. I hope that through sharing a few of my stories with you, I've given you an idea of the ways in which I really was startled to find that some of the things that I had dismissed as being unimportant, not valuable tools in my life, landed up being fundamental to the way that I live in my world. And I hope that in sharing those 3 techniques with you, I've been able to help you to find some options to maybe consider the next time you are facing a challenge or a problem that might be feeling a little overwhelming or something like that. What I'd really like you to do, and I will ask if if we can do this all on microphone. So I'd ask you to unmute yourself and just let me know one thing that I've said today that has resonated with you. One thing that you will take away from the stories that I've shared, and hopefully some of the insights that I've gained that will be able to help you in your life when you next face a challenge.
Lois, is it
Uh,
okay if I go? Oh, go for it. Go, Christopher.
oh no, yeah. For me, it was just the take that first step.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything else will fall in place, but definitely take that first step. And we're so afraid to take the leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what I take away, Lois. Thank you for that.
Thank you,
We
Christopher.
need, yeah, we have to start. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Christopher. Hey, does anyone
Hey,
else
can I?
anything? Yeah, please,
Yeah,
Princess,
can
go
I go?
ahead.
I think for me, Lois, mostly is the asking for help. Last year, I turned 40. Was it last year? Oh, I'm turning 42 this year. And I did a little party
Yeah.
and, got close friends together. The one thing that was common in what they were saying was, I seem to be a well of help in terms of resources. So when someone wants to ask something, they always turn to me and, they always get the help. And I realized that because I see myself as the so-called savior on everyone, I don't know how to ask. And that's the one thing that I'm taking away today is that I need to work on that muscle. I just don't know how to ask for help. I would run myself thin and dry and tired because, I don't want to, that mentality. I don't want to bother people.
Mm-hmm.
What will they think of me? Because sometimes we live our lives in such a way that makes that we make people think we are, you know, and we can do it all and we can't. And that's one thing that I need to learn to do. Just last week I was driving up to Betty's Bay. I've got this little project that I'm working on, and I constantly have to drive up, pulling a trailer to take material and whatnot. And I'm like, in that moment, I could have just, reached out for someone to drive for me because I'm literally just tired of driving. So thank you for that. I really need to learn to ask for help. I would go through the list. It's got people. My WhatsApp has people, it's got friends, but I just don't know how to ask because I don't want to be a burden, So
It
I think I need to learn on that. So thanks for
it's
highlighting that.
it's that fear of imposing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm,
Essentially. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, oh, they're gonna ask me, who said you must do that project so far away? It's your problem. Why bring me to, you know what I mean? The mind plays games. You talk yourself out of even asking for help. So yeah, I need to work on that.
Right. Well, think about that. And
Yeah,
if you'd like to chat through some techniques of how you might want to think differently about that, always happy to do that.
I'll reach out. I'll reach out
Right.
for sure.
What is that also asking for help?
It is. It is in many ways than one. Trust me.
Okay. Who else would like to share with us?
Brittany's
Um,
hand is up. Mhm.
Lois, I think for me, my friend, the number one thing that I will take from today is that it's about honestly just accomplishing one thing and then moving to the next instead of
Oh,
at this overwhelming situation of going, how am I going to do this? Meanwhile, just actually start. Just say, okay, well, I accomplished this, and if it takes me longer the next time, that's fine. Um, and I want to thank you for that because even in my life, sometimes I want to do everything at
mhm.
once, and it's just, you can't. You're
Yeah.
only one person,
Yeah.
and it's one one thing at a time, one project, one thing at a time really does stick to my heart. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Brittany. I'm glad you found that of help. Glad that resonated. Okay,
I definitely.
awesome. Who else would like to share? Who haven't we heard from yet?
We haven't heard from Lizanne
Okay.
and Ariana. I don't know if they're able to unmute. It'll be great to hear what they have to say.
And if you prefer to chat in the chat box, that's also okay. Whatever you'd like.
It's very interesting. I'm sure you've heard me say this 1,000 times, Lois, but I'll say it again. There are only two types of disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
One is that you become disabled, and the other is you are born disabled.
Mm.
So they are kind of street apart.
Yes.
In what Lois has been talking about, and what I, with all due respect, perhaps Brittany, I don't know about anyone else, yeah, it's just, I think your advice, Lois, is very good. And do I take anything away from it? I only take away my sheer admiration of you for what you've had to go through. I mean, thank you for sharing that again. Thank you.
Thanks, Hilary. Appreciate that. Lizanne, would you like to share something with us? No? Adriana, would you like to share something with us? Thank you, Lizanne. Okay. So I guess I'd like to just say thank you. Oh,
Think Tyler has responded. She says, I think no matter what walk of life you may be on, asking for help is seen as bravery and strength.
that's such a beautiful way of approaching it, Taylor. Thank you. I wish more people did see it as bravery and strength, because it is. And I think it is one thing that if we have the courage to ask for help, we benefit. And you never know, it can also benefit the person who's offering that help. But yeah, it allows us to do something we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And that's never a bad thing. Great. Thank you all for sharing in this afternoon. And thank you for listening to what I've spoken about. And I'd just like to express two particular words of thanks. One to Princess for doing an amazing job in supporting and being our MC today, and to Brittany for being the one who first floated the idea of having this event. So thank you to you both for being part of the team, and thank you to everyone for allowing me to speak and to share a little of my story. And I can't wait to hear what Brittany has to share with us. But as a final comment from me, I hope for each one of you that your lives go smoothly and uneventfully, where you don't have to face any challenges. But if you do have to face challenges, my wish for you is to find your music and your puzzles. Princess, I'm going to hand back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lois. If we could all just give Lois a round of applause. Thank you so, so much, Lois. That was brilliant. That was so beautiful. I just love how